Hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Total War Warhammer quick match gameplay. This time around I'm playing as Beastmen against the Warriors of Chaos, led by Romulan Dog, on the map Bjornling's Gathering. So, going into the match, I'm going to throw things in slow motion while I go over my comp. I did choose a fairly conventional Beastman comp because I wasn't entirely sure what my opponent was going to bring. So I'm running Morghur the Shadowgave, who is very strong, has regeneration, has, of course, can summon 4 units of Chaos Spawn, so of course I brought him for that. And he is backed up by 2 Gorbals, not running any potions on him, simply running the Furious Onslaught and Foe Seeker on both. And I'm backing him up with a fairly, I think, conventional army. 3 units of Gors, without shields of course, make up my front line. Simply to deal with enemy squishier infantry. Chaos doesn't tend to bring too much of those, but they will give me a bit of a front line to absorb enemy charges, to dish out the hurt to squishy enemy units, and to kind of just overwhelm my opponent with some numbers. And they are backed up by 2 units of Bestigors, who will provide me with more armor-piercing damage and help deal with infantry. Behind that, we have a unit of Minotaurs with great weapons. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of the Minotaurs with great weapons against most factions because they don't have shields, which makes them very susceptible to ranged fire. But against Chaos, of course, that is not a problem since Chaos doesn't tend to bring any projectiles. And now on one flank, I am running a unit of Centaurs with great weapons combined with Chaos Warhounds with poison. That makes them fairly cost-efficient counter to enemy cavalry. Though of course they probably won't do ideally against, say, Chaos Knights. And on the other flank, I'm running a Razor Gore Herd. I wanted to give these guys a shot, see if I can do some rear charging, cycle charging with them. They're a fairly cheap unit, a bit like the Orcs Quigs, so I definitely wanted to give them a shot. My opponent is running Kolek Suneater as his leader, backed up by a Chaos Sorcerer of Fire on a Manticore. That is definitely a little bit scary, because the Chaos Sorcerer of Fire can obviously drop fireballs, and having regeneration, Morghur is very susceptible to that damage. Backing up Kolek, of course, my opponent does have a front line of Chaos Marauders, simply to probably soak up my initial charge, much the same purpose as Gors, except more of them. As you can see, I'm already getting hit by fireballs over here, though the overcast does mean that my opponent's wizard takes some fire as well. On the flanks, there are 2 units of Forsaken, which will perform fairly well against most Beastmen infantry, since Beastmen infantry is very squishy. They should tear through Gore Herds very quickly. 2 units of Chaos Warriors with great weapons, who should definitely deal with Bestigors pretty handily, though I don't think they're necessarily the best choice against Beastmen, given how few armored units they'd have to bring. And behind that, a unit of Chosen with halberds, definitely a threat to my Minotaurs, and they are backed to Aspiring Champions just to stiffen up morale, provide extra encouragement in the front line. That extra tankiness, so definitely very useful. And then a unit of generic Chaos Knights over here, with simply to bring some extra added mobility to my opponent's army. As you can see, I'm taking some nasty damage to Morghur. He is very susceptible to fire damage, as been mentioned before, because between Kindle Flame and his natural susceptibility, thanks to regeneration, that's a 32% bonus to damage, I do believe, assuming it's additive. Fortunately, my opponent doesn't miss here, so I don't take an extra hit. And it's definitely very worrisome dealing with Kolek Suneater and Dragon Ogre Shath, because I don't have too many units that can tie down my opponent's heavy units and prevent, say, Kolek from force pathing through my army and getting on top of Morghur. So that is definitely a bit worrisome. What I'm doing here is I'm converging all of my Gore Herds on the Chaos Marauders, because they don't really have much of a chance against the Forsaken. I'm simply pushing the best Gores in to overrun the Forsaken, and I do decide to slow the Forsaken down over here by throwing the Minotaurs into them. Minotaurs are not actually ideal against Forsaken, because Forsaken have fairly high damage, and Minotaurs have no armor to speak of. They only have 35 and no physical resistance built in, so that's rather pitiful. So they'll get destroyed pretty handily even by Forsaken. As you can see, they take a lot of hurt there, already down to 8 models with that one swing from Kolek, I think. But the Bestigors are there now. The Centaurs do charge into my opponent's flank, going after his Dragon Ogre Shaggoth. But my opponent is definitely overloading the right flank over here. In the meantime, I've wiped out these Marauders. I'm overwhelming these Forsaken, and then we'll be able to push through to get into these Chaos Warriors with great weapons. I'm, as you can see, cycling my Razor Gores into my opponent's rear, trying to break them. As you can see, the Chaos Marauders have already routed off the field. In the meantime, on the right flank, things are going very, very poorly. I'm pulling the Vestigore Herd back, rather than trying to keep them in the fight. because all these units have broken. Bestigors are actually fairly quick, and that is definitely an advantage. I can outrun most of my opponent's units pretty effectively. Unfortunately, the Chaos Knights didn't take as much hurt as I would have liked, but now they're being bogged down by Morghur. I'm not too concerned about losing them. They're really bad infantry, so it's honestly not something I'm too worried about. Minotaurs are very badly beat up, but there are still 5 models, so I'm hoping to recover them and push them back in. And the Bestigors over here, I've finished chasing off the Forsaken, at least for now, and I'm going to push him back into my opponent's rear. Definitely a bit of a mistake, I think, on my opponent's part, not chasing him down, or with some sort of units, like perhaps the Chaos Knights could have done a decent number on him. Now, of course, the Gore Horde is immediately breaking, and I'm doing my best to keep Morghur alive, pulling him back from my opponent's large units, which are definitely threatening him pretty badly. Cascading Fire Cloak is down, and moments before, the Flaming Sword of Ruin had gone down as well, and that was definitely boosted my opponent's damage output, but now I'm swarming all over him. The Gorbals are dishing out a lot of hurt, of course, to Kolek and the Shaggoth. And I'm getting my first units of Chaos Spawn on the field. I managed to destroy one of the, drop one of the Chaos units, the Chaos Warriors, I think, low enough to get my first unit of Spawn on the field. Now a second one is going down. This is generic Spawn, coming into my opponent's rear and just encircling him, pinstering between these Gorbals, the Summoned Chaos Spawn, Morghur, the Bestigors, the Razor Gores, just kind of slowly planning to whittle them down. Chaos Spawn don't have armor piercing damage, so they aren't ideal against Chaos, but they will definitely do a decent job. And especially with the Bestigors there to dish out some extra hurt. Now the Gorbals are trading okay with, I wouldn't say ideally, they are trading okay. I do think this Lord of the Storm does more friendly fire damage to my opponent's Chosen Halberds. Actually Chosen Halberds, not Warriors with Halberds. But the Chaos Spawn are fairly tanky against that, so that's not much of a problem. The Gorbals are definitely taking a bit of a hurt, but they have managed to dish out some damage in return. As you can see, Kolek, the Dragon Ogre Shaggoth, and the Chaos Sorcerer Fire are all fairly beat up. Now I do charge the Minotaurs in here. The Minotaurs are very badly damaged, but that does open up the opportunity for me to overwhelm these Chosen, wipe them out, and these Minotaurs are simply a sacrifice I'm willing to make here, and as you can see, they're losing models very, very quickly. But they do get some damage in, once again, against the Chaos Sorcerer Fire. The Gore Horde is recovering a little bit. I do have to be very careful about Terror Shock, because all these units still cause terror, and that's definitely something I'm a bit worried about. Over here, though, as you can see, the Gores are running the Chaos Warriors down, making sure they don't come back. That is very cheap for me, and that is definitely a big advantage I think that Chaos has, that Beastmen have. Their units are very mobile, and they can easily stay on top of enemy infantry. Only Wood Elves are really quicker. Now, the units of Chaos Spawn are falling apart, of course, that was a given. Now, the Gorbals are focusing down on Kolek. Kolek could theoretically outrun them, I suppose, but they're focusing down. And we'll hopefully bring him down before he takes both of them down. The Shaggoth is, of course, in there, and they all have bonuses against large, so this is very, very, very quickly snowballing into a battle of annihilation for all of these units involved. Kolek does get badly beaten up and is now retreating. In the meantime, though, this Shaggoth is slugging it out with the Gorbal. The Gorbal is probably going to lose that fight, but the Shaggoth should die in the process. In the meantime, I'm moving Morghur, and this was, I think, a bit of a mistake on my part. I do shift Morghur out to here, trying to get another Chaos Spawn off on one of the units that were really low on HP. And unfortunately, the Dragon Ogre Shaggoth does get a Cascading Fire Cloak on it, and my opponent managed to break these Razor Gores. But fortunately over here, I do get another unit of Chaos Spawn. I do still have 2 somewhat healthy units of Bestigors. These Gores are still around. Kolek's completely shattered off the field, and I'll be able to encircle and deal with that Shaggoth shortly. So yeah, that was it for the replay. So, going over the results very quickly. As you can see, the Gores actually did fairly okay, given that they were positioned against their ideal target. And definitely did a decent job pushing my opponent's units away. Morghur, of course, doesn't dish out much damage. He's actually a pretty lackluster lord in most aspects, but he does cause poison, and he can summon all those Chaos Spawn, which are definitely very useful there for mopping up my opponent's infantry, bogging him down, and flanking him. That was very useful. Gorbals, of course, dished out a lot of hurt before going down to Kolek, and definitely gave me a bit of an answer to Kolek, the Shaggoth, and the Sorcerer of Fire. Made it very risky for my opponent to really go dive in on Morghur. Bestigors dished out a lot of hurt. They're very much a match for Chaos Warriors with great weapons. And I do believe they actually gained these Chevrons. I don't think they went in with those. The Centaurs with great weapons and the Warhounds, I think, especially the Centaurs, managed very poorly, so they didn't do well. The Chaos Warhounds, though, definitely their poison helped a lot, I think, in that central engagement. So not the worst investment, given how cheap they are. Minotaurs didn't do too much, but once again, they were a bit of a sacrifice to tie down Kolek as I tried to pick apart my opponent's army. And the Razor Horde definitely, I think didn't do terrible. They're a fairly cheap unit, and they did manage to rear charge my opponent fairly effectively. For my opponent, well, of course, Kolek did some monstrous work, so did the Dragon Ogre Shaggoth. The Forsaken, though, got very little usage, even though they were a very much hard counter, I would say, to most of the Beastmen line, being much quicker than even the Beastmen infantry, and dishing out ridiculous amounts of damage to lightly armored units. But despite that, they didn't do very much because they got either dealt with by the Bestigors or the Minotaurs or units like that who they struggle against. And then Chaos Warriors did okay. Chosen, of course, held out for a while. Chaos Knights got actually some kills. I didn't really manage to overwhelm them quickly, but definitely. And the Sorcerer of Fire, I think, was a very good pick against Morghur, given that Morghur is basically the standard pick for Beastmen. It's definitely a very good game to my opponent. Hope to see him again on the ladder. I do hope you guys enjoyed this game. If you did, leave a like or subscribe down below. And be sure to leave in a comment or any requests that you might have for future videos or comps or units you would like to see showcased. And that's it, I guess. I appreciate you all for watching, and Wyvern out.